What's up, everybody? Last week we got Season 4 reloaded of Black Ops 6 and Warzone, and then a couple days ago we got another update, so the meta has finally shifted. I was afraid I was going to be making this video just to tell you that the Krig is #1 again, but the meta changed the Krig. It got rid of the DM-10 already, and of course they have their replacements. So we're going to talk about the long-range meta today, but before I do, if you ever want to hang out live while I play Warzone, Apex, or a variety of other games that I might be streaming, Twitch is linked down below, and all my other socials are linked down below if you want to support me anywhere else, as well as my single-player YouTube channel. And please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment at the end of the video and let me know what you think of my loadouts or my rankings or whatever. And hit that notification bell if you like this type of content, want to see it first. I do this at the beginning of every season and after every reloaded update. And of course, we're going to look at the loadouts, and then we're going to go to True Game Data to talk about the stats and show a little more of my reasoning behind my rankings. But without further ado, let's jump into the loadouts. So we're starting off with the replacement for the DM-10. That's the TR2, and I put it in its own category, semi-auto, because even if it's the best option, a lot of people don't like semi-auto or burst weapons. They like purely automatic weapons. And so I put it in its own thing. But, you know, in the right hands, or once you get used to using semi-auto, this easily is #1 on the list, in my opinion. But it's in its own category. So for the TR2, we have a pretty typical loadout. We have the Willis 3x or your choice of optic. And in the update earlier this week, they did actually make it so they claim that there's less visual recoil on the 2, 3, and 4x optics from Black Ops 6. I don't know if I necessarily agree, maybe a little tiny bit, but on a semi-auto weapon, that's not too big of a deal. So I definitely recommend the Willis 3x. Here we go a little bit differently than we do automated weapons. We go with the ported compensator for the first shot recoil control and the vertical recoil control. There is the muzzle brake here, which gives you kick reset speed, which I think is more useful on like sniper rifles. But on semi-auto weapons, this is nice. It gives you, because every shot is essentially your first shot. And it helps out a lot with that first shot recoil. And then the gun is really just shooting up when you spam the trigger. There's not too much left and right recoil, so that vertical recoil control is really nice as well. We have the gain twist barrel, as we usually do. You can go long or reinforced barrels. The gain twist barrel helps with bullet velocity. I really like the reinforced barrel too, but when you see the TTK with the reinforced barrel, when we look at the TTK chart on True Game Data, we'll look at the long and the reinforced barrel. I use the gain twist barrel. I'm normally a reinforced barrel person, but either one works. You can also use a long barrel for damage range, but if you're going to help damage range, I think you go reinforced and just help with both. Then we go vertical foregrip. Vertical foregrip helps with the horizontal recoil control, and there's not a whole lot of horizontal recoil. So if you wanted to go like ranger foregrip, you could do that, get a little sprint move speed, although you probably shouldn't be sprinting with your long range gun. And then, you know, there's also the precision, which helps with aim, idle sway, and horizontal recoil control, but I don't think you really need the horizontal sway. Then we go extended mag 2. If you're playing solos or duos, go extended mag 1 or like a fast mag. You certainly don't need extended mag 2 outside of quads, really, and kind of trios. I always go commando grip to help aim down sight and sprint to fire. You can go quick draw to help aim down sight if you wish. Then light stock, I always go light or no stock. The balanced helps you with a little more if you're like strafing in a fight with the aim walking move speed, which you don't get here, but you get more movement speed, strafe movement speed, and hip fire movement speed, although the hip fire movement speed is not very important. And then I go recoil springs. If you don't mind the recoil, definitely go with overpressured, or go like long barrel for damage range and overpressured, or reinforced barrel and bullet velocity give you that extra bullet velocity. But I like recoil springs just because the recoil it does have. I don't know why the triggers on my controller are acting up now. Probably because I drop it all the time. It does help with the recoil it does have and makes it almost not move at all. If you want to go 5 attachments, drop the recoil springs, the stock, and the rear grip. And this is what I would do. Although if you're not feeling like a lot of recoil at all, you could maybe go back to like the commando grip and drop the vertical foregrip. But this is the loadout I prefer with 8 attachments. And of course, you know, you can switch up the barrel as well. So moving on to, and I hate this bug when you hit that back arrow that it goes back like that. It's exposed #1. I gotta remember to use my controller. At number 5, we have the Krig. Now the Krig got a pretty heavy nerf, but it didn't take it out of the meta completely. Of course, number 5 would argue probably is not really meta. So you could say it's out of the meta. And it's the same loadout we've been running. Willis 3 times, compensator, gain twist, vertical foregrip, extended mag 2, which is now down to 60 rounds instead of 70. Commando grip, no stock, and recoil springs. All of those for the same reasons we talked about on the TR2. Now, once again, barrel is preference. You go gain twist. You can go long range if you want to push out the damage range, or go reinforced barrel to help both. I don't know why gain twist on there. I typically have reinforced barrel. But you can go anything you want here, although the Krig's pretty dead. At number 4, we have the Ames. The Ames is always kind of hanging around the meta conversation, but has never been the meta. It might have been really early into Black Ops 6 Warzone, but I want to say it hasn't really been. We go Willis 3 times, compensator, reinforced barrel, vertical foregrip, extended mag 2. There is no extended mag 3, but it's still 60 rounds. Commando grip, light stock, which is your no stock or light stock, and recoil springs. And with all ARs, I didn't mention this on the Krig, but 5 attachments is just taking off those last 3 and running it with your choice of optic, compensator, reinforced barrel, long barrel, or gain twist barrel, vertical foregrip, and extended mag 2. But of course, as always, I like to try to get the 8 attachments when possible. So moving on to number 3, we have the GPR. A lot of people are putting this as their number 1 because in the close and like the close mid-range, it's quite good, but it suffers from a problem that the Ames also has, that it falls off fairly early and it falls off pretty hard. Now this falls off harder overall than the Ames, but in the close mid-range, in the closer range, like if you're using this as like a sniper sport, it blows away everything on this list pretty much. And so a lot of people are really liking it, but if you're playing on like big map and not just Resurgence, once you get to push out that range, it drops off really hard, which is something that the Krig does now too, even though it always kind of fell off a little bit hard. It falls off. It's the gun that falls off the second hardest behind just the Krig. But it's the typical loadout we were just talking about. Now, this is a gun, if you're insistent on using the GPR, that I would actually recommend considering the long barrel. Once again, I still like reinforced to help damage range and bullet velocity, but consider the long barrel so you can push out where it drops off. But I like to help both. It's kind of up to you, but it does drop off pretty hard and pretty early. So moving on to number 2 is what people have a lot as number 1, and that is the growl conversion for the SWAT. I like it. It's the easiest to shoot on this list, probably. Maybe the only thing easier is maybe the Ames. You could argue that this should be farther back on the list. I know a lot of people don't like running an optic on it, which we'll talk about in a second, with 5 attachments. And you can't put a barrel on this, so we actually only have 7 instead of 8. But other than that, it's pretty normal build. Your choice of optic, your compensator, I was going to say your choice of muzzle, but the compensator, vertical foregrip. There's only one mag choice, and that's the full auto extended mag. Commando grip, light stock, and then the growl conversion instead of like recoil springs. If you're doing 5 attachments, you have to keep the growl conversion on. You don't have a barrel, so that clears up one spot. A lot of people don't run an optic. So if you weren't running an optic and you just don't want to, this is the route that I would go. I would leave the rear grip for the faster ADS and sprint to fire times, just in case you get caught with your long range out up close. I for five attachments would actually run it with the optic because I'm blind, I guess. But with 5 attachments, this is how I would run it. Of course, like I said, if you go iron sights anyways, go with the commando grip over the optic, because you're obviously not going to run an optic, but this is how I would run it. And you can put a laser on it if you wanted to use all 8 attachment slots. Go with the target laser, just help aim idle sway, but there's not really a lot, especially if you're on controller and you have aim assist. It's not really noticeable. But that's my number 2. And then finally at number 1, I actually think the Cypher is back in the meta. We had a Cypher meta at the when it first came out, like season 2 maybe of Black Ops 6. Warzone, maybe that was season 1 reloaded. It was somewhere in that time. But it's a typical loadout. Your choice of optic, compensator, reinforced barrel, vertical foregrip, extended mag 2, commando grip, light stock, and recoil springs. As usual with a lot of these guns, they're all low recoil. So if you want to go overpressured or whatever the equivalent is, I think they're both overpressured rounds. Then you can go with that for more bullet velocity. And of course, the barrel's interchangeable and the optic's interchangeable. But I don't think anything really else is. But I do think the Cypher is the number 1. So to go over our list again, We have, if you like semi-auto, this would be the number one if you are good with using semi-auto, but it's kind of in its own class since everything else on this list is automatic. But the TR2, then we have the Krig still at number 5. At number 4, we have the Ames. The Ames is a very good option. All of the guns on this list are really good options. Number 3, I have the GPR. Number 2, I have the SWAT Grau conversion, although a lot of people would have this number 1. And then at number 1, I have the return of the Cypher. So if you're just here for loadout rankings and their builds, thank you so much for watching. For the rest of us, we're going to jump over to True Game Data. So we are over on True Game Data now. You can see I have the reinforced barrel on everything that will allow the reinforced barrel. And when you look down at the charts, you can see why I say the TR2, you don't really have to worry about damage range too much. So, you know, if you want to go gain twist, go gain twist. And here you can see the GPR actually is the fastest up until 45 meters when you use like the standard combination metric for shots on True Game Data. But then it falls off fairly early and falls off very hard to being the second worst on this list in the longer ranges, only better than the Krig. If you're looking at the Cypher, why I have it number 1, it's somewhere... It's ahead of the Krig and the SWAT here in this mid range, and then when everything's dropped off and we're looking, you know, past 60 meters, the Cypher is the best. It's very easy to shoot, and you can see the Krig does fall off, but it's not so bad that it gets blown away. And until it drops off, it's actually very competitive until it drops off. But then once it drops off hard. So if you're looking at Rebirth, you can still run the Krig. You can run the Cypher. You can run the GPR. I wouldn't really necessarily recommend the Ames. You can see the Ames falls off really early. I wouldn't necessarily recommend the Ames or the SWAT on Rebirth as much as I would recommend them for big map. And I'm primarily a big map player. But the real star of the show here is you can see the TR2. Even after it falls off, it is blowing everything out of the water with the combination shots. And so it's hard to argue that's number 1. Even when you throw in ADS time, the TR2, the gap closes, and the GPR, the gap widens on how good it is. But at closer, long range, it doesn't really matter. Neither does sprint to fire too much. And when you go back to sprint to fire, nothing is touching the TR2 in the long range. So I would say until it gets nerfed, get comfortable with semi-auto and use it. If you're really not comfortable, I would recommend the Cypher. Because no matter what you factor in, when you use the combination of shots, the Cypher is number 1. And we know no one's hitting all their shots in one location. And so I do go with the Cypher as number 1 overall. And the recoil is really not bad on it. If you really just want recoil control, you got to go with the Ames or the SWAT. The Ames and the SWAT, you know, are, of course, in the long range, the next 2 best TTKs. But they also fall off the earliest of all the weapons. So you got to balance all of that into consideration. So if you're playing Rebirth, you really don't care as much near the 60 meter mark. And so 40 to 60 is where you're looking at the most. And that would still, you know, lend to the Cypher a lot. Really, I would say it lends to the Cypher completely. It would take the SWAT out of it, but the TR2, no matter what's destroying people. And the GPR does just fall off fairly early and falls off pretty hard. And so the GPR is definitely usable. I mean, in the mid-range, it's fairly competitive. But like I said, I'm mainly a big map player. So I'm mainly looking at it from that perspective. And in the long range, the GPR is going to struggle. But of course, there is no truly bad options on this list. They're all easy to shoot. They all have competitive TTKs throughout the different ranges. So it's really going to be up to you. But that is my long range rankings for Season 4 Reloaded, especially after this week's update. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments down below. And please don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell if you like this type of content, want to see it first. And check out all the links in the description, including my Twitch, my socials, my single player channel, and of course True Game Data if you want to go do comparisons yourself. But I will see you on Verdansk. Get frying. Have a good day. Bye.